Hello and welcome to Little African News. My name is Mona Davids and I am the founder of Little African News as well as New York Voice News. I want to welcome everyone. This is our first show for 2026. We went on a little bit of a hiatus after last year, and it's 2026. Granted, it's April, but we have a new mayor, a new administration, a lot of things going on here in New York City. And one of the biggest appointments that's very important to our community was the appointment of our honorable guest today, Commissioner Afua Atta-Mensah. So, Commissioner, thank you so very much for being here for our first 2026 show. Granted, it's April, but it's our inaugural show, not just for 2026, but for the Zoran Kwame Mamdani administration. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. And for our viewers who don't know you, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Congratulations on this inaugural episode. I'm excited to be a part of it. My name is Afua Atta-Mensah, and as you mentioned, I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Equity Officer for New York City and the Commissioner for the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice.
Wonderful. And Commissioner, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? We are Little African News. We can look and see your surname. So we see you one of us, clearly West African, South African here.
Okay.
But, can you please just tell us a little bit more about yourself and, your background?
Sure, happy to do so. As you mentioned, the last name Atta-Mensah, you can't miss it. My father is from Ghana, West Africa, Kumasi, Ashantini, and my mom is a child of Harlem. And so, I've been blessed as a New Yorker to be a part of an amazing diasporic Black community. Growing up, having been, blessed with the best jollof rice there is, that's Ghanaian jollof rice, and also collard greens. So, my background that brings me here is one of an organizer. Though I started my career at the Legal Aid Society, representing tenants who were fighting for dignity then, who were fighting to keep their homes, and part of that was informed for me by my life experiences as a child of an immigrant and as a native New Yorker, and the disparate treatment that both were received as immigrants, specifically as Black immigrants and as Africans, and as Black people in this country, that helped kind of frame my understanding of different treatment from an early age. And so it always shaped in me wanting to be a part of folks who are fighting with and on behalf of people we love. And so much of our cultures are familial. And so I have been blessed to part of a community where, my joke, I'm a Bronx girl, otherwise known as Ghana West. And so, folks get off that flight at JFK and they know that there is a vibrant Ghanaian community in the Bronx where you can taste your food, speak your language, learn. So I'm excited to be able to be a part of this administration to continue that guidance of fighting to make sure that New Yorkers get to live with dignity. And so I'm super excited to be a part of this new era with another African mayor who has been very clear and unequivocal about wanting to ensure that New Yorkers are not pushed out of this great city because of issues of affordability, and that issues of affordability and racial justice are inextricably linked. So I'm proud to serve with a mayor who has that framing and who has made this a priority. And I'm super excited to be able to speak with you and to our diaspora community across the city.
Wonderful. You're so right. People know all about the Ghanaian community here in New York, especially in the Bronx. Commissioner, so let's talk about the equity plan, the racial equity plan. So it was voted on by referendum, I think, in 2022.
That's correct.
And, now you and Mayor Mamdani presented it yesterday. Um, and it is also open to public comments. So for our viewers who aren't familiar, because 2022 is a bit of a while ago, we're in 2026, so it kind of fell off people's radar. Some people like myself that were watching things unfold, we're like, okay, then the lawsuit was filed to push that it actually is executed and done. And now, we're here. So, can you speak a little bit about what the racial equity plan is and some of the findings that are included in the presentation and the importance of this public comment period?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So, just as you said, this came out of a charter amendment due to a vote in 2022, where New Yorkers went to the ballot and overwhelmingly voted in favor of a few things. One, that we need to enshrine issues of equity within the charter, like a vision. Two, for the creation of the office where I currently serve as the commissioner, this Office of Equity and Racial Justice, and that there will every 2 years be a preliminary citywide racial equity plan. Also, that there be a report that measures the true cost of living in New York City. So what happened on April 6th is that the mayor made good both on a mandate that was voted on by New Yorkers, but also a promise he made on January 15th during my appointment that unlike the previous administration that failed to release the plan, that within the first 100 days of a Mamdani administration, that the plan would be released. And so what you saw yesterday was both uh, adhering to the law and also the manifestation of a promise made and kept. But I think what's important to note here is that this is a preliminary plan. So what happens now is, as you mentioned, there is a 30-day comment period where, just as we did during yesterday's announcement, we are encouraging people across New York City to review this plan and to review it and to make comments. Our accountability partner in this work, an independent agency, CORE, they lead the engagement efforts with the public. So we encourage people to engage with CORE's external efforts to ensure that public is seeing this, but also you can go online and review and leave comment. And it's really important because that comments and public feedback helps shape what then becomes the final citywide racial equity plan. And it's important because this is the first. It is but a mere initial first step, right? It is not everything. And while it is important, it is not all that this administration is going to do in terms of equity and racial justice, right? Like this is basically setting the minimum standard for what needs to happen. Again, meeting the law and putting it out. But it is not the only way that issues of equity and racial justice are going to live within the Mamdani administration.
Okay, and with this public comment period, uh, I take it, are there going to be hearings? Is there a site set up that people can go and submit their comments on it? And when it comes to outreach, what type of outreach is the city doing? Is some of this going to be in like ethnic media outlets? Is there engagement going on with when it comes to, for example, the African community? We have a lot of different African associations. And those leaders from the associations are also very civically engaged as well. So I'm just curious as to what type of efforts, what exactly are you guys going to be doing to reach out to us? And then let's not also forget about language access. Is some of this information going to be put out in different languages? Granted, we are English Commonwealth, but New York City is mostly West African and mostly Francophone African. So will some of this information be going out in French? And I'm just curious as to the type of outreach
Engagement. Yeah.
CORE is going to be doing, and the city as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. Well, I can give some top lines. One, first and foremost, on the website, people can go to bit.ly.com /REP plan, and that's BITLY.com /REP survey, to be able to go online and fill out a form to give public comment. And I would just say that folks should stay in tuned online with CORE, because they will put out on their website as an agency how they're going to do their robust kind of external engagement plan. So I know they're going to do some in person, some virtual, but they have spent a lot of time really thinking about this, and I don't want to speak for CORE. And I should flag that the executive director of CORE, Linda Tagani, is also a child of the diaspora, and I'm sure has a multitude of thought given to how we ensure that folks of different language access can onboard and do this. But I'd say on our side at the Office of Equity and Racial Justice, we are similarly going to be reaching out to civic organizations to do kind of presentations that give top lines on the plan, to continue to support city agencies who have aspects of their own agency plans to ensure that they're collecting information as they're engaging with the public, so we can get as most information as we can. And again, that this is our first time doing this as a city. So it's important, a first step. There are going to be things that we can do better and learn from, but the intention was to make sure that we both met the law and the mayor's promise to do this within the first 100 days. We knew that the most important thing we could do was make sure that this report saw the light of day, to get feedback, to be shaped, and frankly, to inform how we do these processes better in the future.
Wow, this is amazing. It took a while to happen, but it's finally happening. And, we definitely will continue to cover this. I'd love to reach out to CORE's executive director and get even more information. For our viewers, at the end of the video, we will put up a screen with the website link, so that you can go online and make a comment. And what we'll also do is we'll put a little banner on the website, so that people can click on the banner that says, if you want to comment on the racial equity plan, click here to also take our viewers directly to the page. Commissioner, so in yesterday's press conference, if you can just speak about some of the findings, the preliminary findings that were included, like one of them, and I'm just going off my head, but was, the wages, the salaries,
The wealth gap. Yep.
The wealth gap. Yeah. If you can just speak to that, because that really shocked me. So,
no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please go ahead.
No, to your point. So both, some pieces on the disparities amongst racial groups that were lifted up in the true cost of living, and also that we seek to have policies to help address in the preliminary racial equity plan, that I think you're referring to, was the statistic that the average wealth for white families in New York City was over $200,000. And that the average wealth for Black families in New York City was $18,000. So to your point, where we know that the years of different laws and policies that harmed communities of color, and this is how it plays out, right? This is one example of the wealth gap. Another example that I know was pretty startling to hear, just in terms of life, not just quality, but how long life is. On average, white New Yorkers lived into their 80s, where Black New Yorkers were, I think it was like 75 or 76. So we're talking about 5 to 6 years of a difference life expectancy. And so, you have to both have the facts and the data so that folks can look at it. And then there's a mandate that comes as part of a city and government to address these problems. So first we have to lift up the data so it is clear and people can understand the depth and breadth of the problem. And then in the plan, we talk about the historical impacts that brought us here. and some of the goals that different agencies have to tackle these gross disparities so that hopefully by the time we are leaving this administration, we have made an impact in changing some of this data.
So my final question, Commissioner, is, once the plan is finalized after the comment period, um, what mechanisms are in place to ensure that um, the various city agencies actually comply with the plan? Who's going to be, who's going to be holding them accountable? I'm sure your office is, but how are you going to be doing that? Would it be annual reviews? Like, what
Thank
would?
you for that question. Yes, so the way that the mandate, the charter amendment was set up is that there's supposed to be a preliminary plan every 2 years. And in between those, there has to be follow up and I think a report or information as to where we are in these goals. And I think it's helpful for me to mention for the viewer that the plan is set up where each agency, we have 45 agencies that participated in putting together plans for their respective agencies, have goals that are short term, medium term, and long term that both have years by which they hope to have been successful in these goals. And there's both strategies and data that will allow us, that they put out, the agencies note of when they want to have reached those goals. So some of them will be self-evident. And if it's just giving an example, if we're saying we're doing something by 2028, whether that has happened or not, and some will be, of course, with some nuance. What were the hurdles that may have prevented or slowed down? What did we learn along the way in sourcing? So I think one, the plan gives clear accountability methods with timelines. The other piece that's important, I've mentioned them before, even in the adoption of this model, part of the charter amendment created CORE, which is the accountability partner that will also be issuing reports about how they are gauging what type of progress that the city has made.
Great. Well, Commissioner, thank you so very much for taking the time out and, discussing this with us. It's something that like I said, we're going to continue to cover, especially, this during the comment period, and maybe get on one of the virtual hearings that they will have and try to cover an in-person hearing as well. But thank you for taking this on. Like you said, New Yorkers voted for this. It took a little while, but it's finally being done. And we look forward to having you back to discuss the final report.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be on today. I look forward to future conversations, and thank you for all of your work to make sure that our communities are informed.
No, thank you, Commissioner. Have a great day.